In the summer of 2021, facing challenging circumstances, I made the decision to return to my childhood home with my mother. Although I was 30 years old and it wasn't what I had envisioned, I saw it as an opportunity to minimize living expenses while dedicating myself to long work hours. After a week of delaying the task of unpacking my boxes and organizing my room, I finally decided to make a start. With my mom away from home, I thought it was a good opportunity to turn on some Spotify and enjoy some music while I worked. As I unpacked, I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye of something or someone passing by my door in the hallway. My attention immediately shifted in that direction. "Mom?" I called out. But the only response came from the music playing in the background. I waited, staring at the partially open door of my bedroom for a moment. Then, I rose to my seat, pushing the door open a little further and peering outside into the hall, searching for any signs of movement. Yet, all I could discern were the dimly illuminated corridors cast by the soft light spilling from my room. As I stood motionless in the hallway, a faintly strange scent caught my attention, prompting goosebumps to rise on my arms. A chilling feeling crept over me, as if something unsettling lurked nearby. To dispel the discomfort, I switched on additional lights and meticulously combed through the rooms, determined to confirm that I was alone. At least I hoped. After a few minutes of searching, and to my relief, I found nothing. In the depths of the night, I woke up and ventured to the bathroom. Upon my return, and as I settled into my bed, I was greeted by the eerie sound of creaking emanating from the closed closet. With a sense of apprehension, I lifted my head to observe the source of the noise, the creaking growing louder and more distinct. Shortly thereafter, the sound quieted down, and I chalked it up to the house's old age. Convinced I had thoroughly inspected everything and was simply scaring myself, I chose to play some gentle music and return to sleep. The following day, I mentioned the strange occurrences and sounds to my mom, who casually suggested it might be the ghost she suspects haunts our home. The mention of a ghost sent a chill through me. Although I'm not one to believe in the supernatural, the events of the previous night had left me quite unnerved. Over the next few days, my senses were heightened, particularly during moments of solitude in the darkness and silence. I couldn't shake off this eerie feeling, as if an unseen presence lurked in the shadows, watching. Occasionally, a strange smell would assault my nostrils, and I'd experience sudden chills. Despite the pervasive fear that I might encounter a ghostly figure at any moment, I, as an adult, attempted to dismiss these notions as mere childlike fears. Though, on another night, as I lay in bed attempting to fall asleep, the familiar creaking sound from the previous week resurfaced, followed by a distinctly loud thud and some faint rattling, all coming from the direction of my closet. Hesitant to turn my gaze towards it, dreading what I might see, I eventually gathered the courage to look. To my relief, there was nothing unusual, just my closed, empty closet in the midst of my dimly lit, sparse room. Compelled by the need for peace of mind, I resolved to stand up, turn on the lights, and investigate the closet to confirm that nothing malevolent was hiding inside. As I neared the closet, fully alert, and opened it, I found only the bags I had previously placed there. Yet, the noise returned, a faint creaking that seemed to originate from directly above the closet. Without fully understanding my motivation, I knocked on the ceiling, then held my breath, wondering if there would be any reaction. Anticipation sent my heart into a flurry, nervous about receiving a response, but thankfully, all that followed was silence. with the creaking sound also fading away. I made my way back to bed, but the memory of the sounds and the unsettling sensation wouldn't fade. I sat there, lights on, eyes locked on the closet. Despite it being 1 a.m. and feeling drained, a notion surfaced, demanding my immediate attention. Rising from my bed, I exited my room and entered the adjacent guest room, a space filled with my mom's old belongings from previous projects she'd embarked on. Turning on the light as I entered, I glanced towards the closet, driven by dim recollections of something I needed to verify was still there. With apprehension, I swung the closet door of the guest room open. To my dismay, upon looking upward, I discovered a small door that seemed to lead to an attic space above. Throughout my life in this house, I was unaware of anyone ever utilizing it. However, a profound fear gripped me, suggesting that this might no longer be true. The creaking noise resumed, unmistakably emanating from beyond that door. I paused, silently gazing at the door, before boldly declaring, "I know you're up there." Unsure of what response I hoped for, my heart pounded with the near certainty that someone was concealed above. Unwilling to proceed by myself, I opted to rouse my mom for support. As I entered her dark room, whispers seemed to float through the silent, dark house once more. Gently, I nudged my mom awake, explaining the situation to her. Without hesitation, she rose and turned on her desk lamp for light. Shortly thereafter, the sounds in the hallway intensified, exchanging alarming looks with my mom. I headed back towards her door, stepping into the hallway. There, my heart plummeted at the sight of a tall, slender elderly man with unkempt, straggly brown hair. Our eyes locked, and with widened gaze, he swiftly bolted down the stairs, vanishing from sight. Paralyzed with disbelief, I stood still as my mom's anxiety escalated behind me. The man left the house quicker than I could process the event. Moving slowly, I made my way to the stairs, walked down, and glanced out the front door's window in hopes of spotting him. The floodlights across the neighborhood flicked on in his wake, clearly marking his escape. We immediately contacted the police to report the break-in and decided to inspect the attic. It turned out to be a cramped crawl space, within which we discovered a sleeping bag alongside various bits of debris, indicating he had taken up residence there. Fortunately, we experienced no further incidents with uninvited guests. Although the man seemed to have sought merely shelter and warmth without the intent to harm us, the idea of an unknown person lurking in our home, unseen during our absences or slumbers, remains highly unsettling. This experience has made me more cautious, always wary of unexpected hiding spots where someone might be hiding. In the summer of 2018, while I was in high school and residing with my family, my parents set off for our seasonal cabin getaway, leaving town. Typically, I would have joined them, but feeling a bit more mature, I chose to stay home and invite a few friends over instead. As the sun dipped below the horizon on that Friday evening, I found myself on the phone engaged in conversation with my friend Stacy, finalizing our plans for the night. It was our usual routine to convene with our inner circle of girlfriends, indulging in discussions about boys and high school gossip, all the while sneaking in a little of our favorite drinks that Stacy was able to score for us that night. Moments after wrapping up my conversation with Stacy, I made my way to the refrigerator when movement outside the kitchen window grabbed my attention. Approaching the window, I peered outside but discerned nothing unusual. However, shortly after, faint noises emanated from the vicinity of our glass patio door. I stood for a moment in the quick engulfing darkness as I yet turned on any lights in the house, just listening closely. Outside, though faint, the indistinct sounds coalesced into unmistakable footsteps, causing me to strain my ears in apprehension. I was feeling a bit creeped out. Who could possibly be lurking in my backyard? Unless it was one of my friends attempting to scare me, which I wouldn't hold it past them. The footsteps gradually faded away. I cautiously slid open the glass patio door and peeked outside, scanning the area to ensure no one was in the backyard. All I encountered was the warm summer breeze and the distant echoes of barking dogs. But within moments, the tranquility shattered as I detected the sound of someone fiddling with the lock on the door leading to our garage. As anticipation mounted, my breaths grew shallow, anticipating the imminent opening of the door, clueless about the intruder's identity. My heart racing, I positioned myself behind a nearby wall, seeking refuge and concealment. Then, the door creaked open, sending a shiver down my spine. Peeking around the corner, I was met with sheer terror. Standing before me was a tall, slender, middle-aged man, dressed in what appeared to be a dark brown full-body contractor uniform. He remained oblivious to my presence as I watched him venture into the living room. It's like he knew the place. Reacting quickly, I grabbed hold of the largest knife I could find. Just as he approached the stairs, I reached for my phone to dial 911, but the realization dawned upon me that it was charging on my nightstand in my room. To my own surprise, with conviction, I called out to him, confronting him directly and questioning his intrusion. Startled by the unexpected challenge, he swiveled around to face me, his features registering surprise as my voice reverberated through the hushed darkness. Gripping the knife firmly, I held it before me, pointed towards him, ready to defend myself. His reaction shifted from astonishment to amusement in an instant, and he chuckled. "I'm terribly sorry. I had no clue someone was still around," he expressed. He clarified that he was an electrician authorized by my parents, holding the key to conduct any necessary repairs during their absence. Gesturing towards his patch, he affirmed, "Look, it's me, Joe the electrician," maintaining a friendly grin. Despite my lingering tension while holding the knife, I couldn't help but feel a wave of reassurance from his demeanor. However, a lingering question persisted. Why hadn't my parents mentioned his visit beforehand? Despite a slight easing of my nerves, I remained on edge, acutely aware of the imposing figure in the dimly illuminated living room. With a defensive tone, I asserted, "I've already called 911. Perhaps it's best if you return another time when my dad is home." He promptly apologized, acknowledging my concerns, and replied, "I'd expect nothing less from my own daughter." With that, he made a hasty exit through the front door. As he prepared to shut the door behind him, our eyes locked one last time, his unsettling smile freezing me in place. His gaze swept up and down my body in a deeply discomforting manner. "See you later," he uttered before finally closing the door. I kept a close eye on him as he walked away, feeling a sense of relief as he eventually disappeared into a van that drove away. With his departure, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Reflecting on the tense encounter, I quickly realized I should have insisted on getting the keys back, but the thought slipped my mind in the heat of the moment. I simply wanted him gone. Seeking comfort, I illuminated the house with lights and double-checked all the locks. Reaching out to my dad to relay the unsettling encounter, his response sent a jolt of fear through me. He had no arrangements for any electrician or contractor to conduct work. He assured me he would have informed me if such arrangements were made. Expressing relief at my safety, he resolved to return home the following morning. Fortunately, I had plans with friends that evening, sparing me from being alone with my thoughts. I remained on edge throughout the night, and the incident became a prominent topic of discussion during the sleepover. Thankfully, the remainder of the evening passed without any further freaky encounters. Upon my dad's return the following day, he embarked on a thorough investigation into the stranger's presence, enlisting the help of the local police. We had our locks immediately changed out. He methodically questioned our neighbors, seeking any insights into unfamiliar individuals seen near our home recently. One neighbor recalled glimpsing what appeared to be a contractor on our property a couple times in the past month. A couple of days later, following dinner, I was lounging in bed, absorbed in conversation with my friends. Suddenly, a knock echoed through the door. "Yes?" I responded, as my dad entered the room, wearing a concerned expression. He began to meticulously scan the area. "What's happening?" I inquired, puzzled by my dad's behavior. "I just had a thought," he replied, continuing to search my room. It only took a moment for his words to sink in. "Oh my God, do you think he installed cameras?" I blurted out. "I hope not," my dad replied with a hint of concern. After several minutes of thorough searching, he made a discovery: a small camera discreetly installed within the lamp in my room, connected to an unidentified device. My heart plummeted in my chest as the realization dawned on me. That man had been watching me for who knows how long. The mere idea of that tall, unsettling man secretly observing me within the confines of my own room filled me with an overwhelming sense of terror. We delivered the discovered equipment to the police, who conducted an investigation but ultimately failed to locate or identify the intruder. I was left in a state of disbelief, struggling to comprehend that such a frightening situation could happen in reality. While such incidents are often depicted in movies, I never imagined it could occur to me. Even now, I often find myself pondering whether I will ever cross paths with that man again. The thought occasionally crosses my mind: could any of the videos or pictures he captured resurface online? The incident truly shook my world, and despite my efforts to move on, the unsettling notion of someone observing me for their twisted desires continues to linger, haunting me indefinitely. As I turned 44 in the spring of 2018, my wife Faith and I marked the occasion with a modest celebration. With age, birthdays became less about grand gestures and more about cherished moments with family, typically involving a favorite meal with a gathering of close ones. Later that evening, moments before heading to bed, I found myself scouring the cupboards and refrigerator for a snack. While reaching for a newly purchased tub of vanilla ice cream hidden in the depths of the freezer, I accidentally knocked a couple of ice cubes onto the floor. "How many did you drop this time?" Faith's playful voice called out from the living room. Let me see. Just 2. Wait, no, 3. I responded, trying to suppress a laugh. Tossing the cubes into the sink and turning to grab a bowl from the cupboard, I confidently took a step forward. However, my confidence was short-lived, as my foot unexpectedly slid on one of the ice cubes I didn't see resting on the polished wooden floor, causing me to slip. Then, everything went dark. Everything went silent. Floating in a void, I remained still, sensing only a rhythmic pulsing of my heart within my chest. Gradually, consciousness stirred, accompanied by intensifying sounds of my heartbeat and breath. Panic surged within me as my rational mind returned, and I felt as though suffocation closed in around me. I couldn't breathe. A profound heaviness pressed down upon me, accompanied by a chilling embrace. Gradually, I sensed the return of my physical form, and instinctively, I attempted to extend my arms forward, encountering what seemed to be cold, damp earth. Summoning all my strength and resolve, I exerted myself, pushing against the weight until it shattered, and I broke through, grasping for air. As I lay there, breathing heavily, I swept away the dirt that covered me and took in my surroundings. It dawned on me that I must be dreaming. I discovered myself in a vast graveyard, illuminated by the eerie glow of the moon in the foggy atmosphere as I continued to rid myself of the dirt while standing up. Although I was certain that I was experiencing a dream, I couldn't ignore the startling sensation of the chill in the air and the physical feedback of the ground beneath my feet, along with the gentle caress of the wind. I noted that the earth beneath me, where I had believed myself buried, appeared untouched. But what truly took me aback was the sight that stood before it. Before me stood a gravestone inscribed with my name, accompanied by the words, "A loving husband," and the date of death, April 11th, 2018. That's today. As I gazed upon it, attempting to grasp an emotion, my thoughts were abruptly interrupted by a chilling, ghostly howl that reverberated throughout the graveyard. I shifted my gaze forward, just beyond the gravestone, and caught sight of a tall, giant, ominous figure cloaked in darkness in the distance. A creeping fear gripped me as the figure appeared to grow in size, carrying with him the oppressive darkness of the night. Rooted to the spot, I found myself unable to look away from the menacing silhouette before me. Suddenly, a quiet voice whispered from behind, "Don't let him see you," the words barely audible amidst the tension of the moment. Swiveling around, I spotted a faint apparition of a young boy standing some distance away, beckoning me to follow. Meanwhile, the ominous howls emanating from the dark figure grew louder as it began to slowly turn around. "Come on, mister, hurry," the boy urged once more. I quickened my pace toward him, descending down the slope of a hill and taking cover behind another grave as an eerie light from the figure's eyes scanned across the graveyard. Grasping for breath, I desperately wished to awaken from this nightmare. Looking around for the spectral boy I had seen earlier, I found no sign of him. My heart continued to race, and I struggled to regain my breath as the fog thickened. Though unsure why I felt the need to hide myself from the figure, the sheer terror it invoked was enough to drive me away. As the black silhouette disappeared, the whispers gradually diminished, becoming distant echoes. I roamed the graveyard, acknowledging the surreal nature of the dream, but feeling a mounting sense of dread at the possibility of being trapped here. With each passing moment, the seemingly endless rows of graves blurred together as I wandered through the eternal fog. Certain sights appeared eerily familiar, especially the ominous tree looming before me. It stood tall and sinister, its dark silhouette contrasting starkly with the surrounding graves. Suddenly, it dawned on me. This was the cemetery near my childhood home, where I had played on a few occasions, but with more of a hellish-looking landscape. A burst of nostalgia rushed in me, as memories of my childhood here all returned. As the wind started growing fierce, distant cries echoed through the air, signaling the return of the dark presence. The scanning lights inside the fog returned. Amidst the terror, I recalled the nearby road, and it felt as if my mind had unlocked the puzzle of the infinite graves, guiding me towards an escape route. Rushing towards the exit gate and onto the road, I struggled to catch my breath as the billowing fog trailed behind me. From inside the graveyard, I heard a faint voice warning, "Don't let him see you, mister." Suddenly, a light illuminated me, and as I turned my head, my heart skipped a beat. A semi-truck came hurtling towards me at breakneck speed, blaring its horns, and before I could react, its grille collided with me, engulfing me in a world of excruciating pain and blinding light. Then, just as suddenly as it all began, everything faded away, and I slowly found myself opening my eyes. "Paul? Can you hear me?" My wife's voice cut through the haze as I struggled to orient myself. Gradually, I became aware of my surroundings and realized I was in a hospital bed. The remnants of the nightmarish experience still clung to my thoughts as I tried to adjust to this new reality. Having been unconscious for several hours, I was found to have a minor skull fracture. I felt pretty stupid as it was simply from slipping on an ice cube. Following a brief hospital stay, I was released and returned home, slowly readjusting to my regular routine. One day, I found myself drawn back to that graveyard, unable to shake the memories of that vivid, surreal nightmare. In the light of the day, the cemetery appeared mundane and ordinary, yet one thing remained distinctly ominous, remembering the name etched on the grave where I had taken cover. Jane Addams. I approached it and found what I sought. Just a few strides away, where I had risen from the ground, lay an unoccupied space awaiting its occupant. A creepy feeling gripped me as I pondered whether I had ventured beyond mere nightmares into another realm. If so, the identity and purpose of the dark figure that seemed to be prowling, hunting for souls, would forever haunt me. It was the midnight hour that Valentine's night when my fiancé, Jesse, who had just proposed that night over dinner, woke me up with a sense of urgency. "Erica, wake up," he quietly insisted, gently shaking me. "I'm awake. What's going on?" I responded. Jesse gestured for silence, placing his finger over his lips. "The car alarm went off, and I believe I saw someone moving around outside the house," he whispered. Suddenly, the sound of a broken window on the lower level startled us. I looked at Jesse, my expression filled with concern. Jesse mentioned that he was going to check it out, but I couldn't bear the idea of him venturing downstairs alone. "Oh my gosh, our phones!" I exclaimed as I realized we had both left our phones on the coffee table downstairs. Jesse acknowledged my worry with a slight nod and grabbed a sharp statue as a makeshift self-defense weapon, as it was the only thing readily available. Jesse turned the handle on the door leading to the darkened hallway outside. We chose to keep our lights off to prevent giving away our presence. As we began to cautiously make our way out of the room, the ringtone of Jesse's phone abruptly pierced the silence. "Someone's calling you," I whispered, staying in close proximity to him. Who would be calling this late? He pondered aloud. We continued our slow descent down the stairs, the call persisting in the background. My grip on Jesse remained tight as my fear continued to escalate. I made an effort to tread as quietly as possible with each step. "I'm freaking out," I confessed in a hushed tone. Just a moment later, the call abruptly ended, plunging us into a brief silence. Then, the nearby room just steps below reverberated with the noise of swift running, and mere seconds later, a door slammed shut with a resounding force. Driven by a surge of adrenaline, Jesse raced in the direction of the noise and shouted for the person to reveal themselves. At the same time, he rushed to the kitchen to acquire a more effective weapon. I also grabbed a knife. Jesse rushed to the light switch, turning it on. We ventured into the living room and quickly realized that both our phones were no longer in their original spots. It seemed that the intruder had confiscated them. "We must go to the neighbors," Jesse urged. I directed my gaze towards the bathroom door, the origin of the previous slamming noise. Taking measured steps, I tiptoed towards it, straining my ears to catch any potential sounds. "I think they might be trying to open the window," I whispered. Startling both Jesse and myself, a loud knock suddenly echoed on the front door. Our attention swiftly shifted. "Hello?" a voice called out from the other side. Jesse headed towards the door, peeking outside as he approached. "I think it's our neighbor," he suggested. As Jesse approached the door to open it, my attention was drawn to something quite out of the ordinary. "Jesse, where did those flowers and chocolates come from?" I inquired, pointing toward the couch where they were presented. Jesse glanced over with a look of concern but proceeded to slowly open the door to speak with the neighbor and find out what he wanted. He informed us that he had spotted someone skulking around our house. I quickly asked him to dial 911, a request he promptly fulfilled. The three of us walked over to our neighbor's place while awaiting the arrival of the authorities. The police conducted a brief sweep of both the area and our house, with us waiting outside. They determined it was probably an attempted robbery, and the intruder had managed to escape. To provide us with a sense of security, they stationed a squad car outside their residence for the night. Before we retired to sleep, I brought up the subject of the flowers and chocolates once more, wondering why Jesse would be getting them. After all, this was primarily his living space, and I had only been here several times. Our engagement had taken place just a few months after we had met, so I found myself rapidly learning new things about him. He went on to clarify that he had ended his engagement with his ex-fiancée about a year ago, which was something I was already aware of. However, the following revelation was entirely new to me. Apparently, she had a diagnosed mental illness, and when she was off her medication, her behavior became quite erratic. So basically, she was insane. Jesse suspected that she might be behind the recent events, speculating that she might be feeling especially vulnerable given that it's Valentine's Day. As Jesse was busy organizing the living room, I ascended the stairs to our bedroom. After settling onto the bed and stretching in an attempt to soothe myself, I grappled with the overwhelming weight of the night and the swirling mix of emotions. My attention shifted to the new ring that now adorned my finger, marking this as a truly unforgettable first night of an engagement. As I fidgeted with the ring, a creak echoed from the closet within the room. Instantly, goosebumps prickled on my skin, and my hair stood on end. I shifted my eyes towards the closet. My breath held in, and then I perceived what seemed like someone breathing from within. I listened closer. It was definitely someone breathing. "Jesse?" I exclaimed as I quickly arose from the bed. Right then, I witnessed the closet door swing open, and to my absolute terror, a woman emerged, brandishing a knife. She screamed, "Give me my ring!" Just as our eyes locked, I sprinted to the door, slamming it shut just in the nick of time to prevent her from reaching me. She pounded furiously on the door as I pressed my back against it to hold it closed. "Jesse!" I cried out once more as I heard his footsteps approaching in my direction. "What's happening?" Jesse questioned as he appeared downstairs. I shouted for him to alert the officer outside. The intense banging of the woman's frantic yelling from the other side of the door came to a sudden halt, leading me to believe she was devising an escape plan. I began to hear thumping noises coming from the window inside the room, indicating her attempts to break through. 2 officers quickly ran their way through the entry door and up the stairs. I moved away from the door to allow them to do their job. They shouted their presence while approaching the door. I told them as they approached, I heard her trying to break the window on the opposite side of the room. One officer nodded as the other opened the door. The sound of the woman throwing items at the window persisted, and it finally shattered. The officers had their firearms out, directed at her, and were ordering her not to move while instructing her to raise her hands. Though my view inside was limited, I caught a glimpse of her turning around, wearing a disturbingly evil expression as she made eye contact with me while raising her arms in the air. As her arms ascended, she released the knife from her grip, and it fell to the carpeted floor in front of her. Afterward, she turned around and placed her hands behind her back as the police handcuffed her. Jesse climbed the stairs to offer me support and assess the situation. The officers then escorted the woman out of the room, and our eyes met once more. Jesse kept his gaze lowered the entire time, but it was clear that he had recognized her as his ex-fiancée. After that night, Jesse went out and purchased a firearm which we keep in close proximity now in case of any future encounters. That was based on my request. Though Jesse's ex was seeing some time behind bars, I was worried one day she may try to attack us again. I get especially guarded now on Valentine's Day.